Welcome back, everyone, to Infinite Podcast. Today's hot plate, creativity in startups. It's like the secret sauce, folks. Now, Simon, when we talk creativity in this arena, we aren't just talking about artistry. It's thinking out of the box to solve real-world problems. And let me tell you, a creative environment, that's like fertile soil for ideas to sprout and grow into money trees. Simon, I've seen entrepreneurs using all sorts of techniques to keep those creative juices flowing. What's your take?
Ha, money trees? If only it were that easy to grow cash. But seriously, stimulating creativity isn't just beanbag chairs and free coffee. I've seen a lot of startups succeed by mixing people from different backgrounds. They bump heads, sure, but the ideas that come out are gold. Light bulb moments don't happen in a vacuum. Diversity's the spark plug in this engine.
Totally get that diversity can ignite some serious sparks. But here's a curveball. Too many cooks in the kitchen can spoil the broth, right? I've come across startups where too many perspectives led to chaos. Sure, clash those ideas, but without focus, you're just firing up the smoke machine. A startup needs one clear vision. Otherwise, it's like herding cats. How do we strike that balance between the gold mine of diverse thinking and honing in on a unified path?
You're spot on about herding cats, Joe. It's like trying to watch a bunch of toddlers, isn't it? They're running in every direction, and you're just praying nobody breaks something. I feel the pain. But striking that balance is key. You need someone with the vision to harness that chaos. Without a leader steering the ship, it's all just noise. It's why startups need a captain as much as they need a crew willing to throw ideas around.
Absolutely. Without a captain, the ship's going nowhere fast. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't it also true that sometimes captains can get a little, dictator-ish? When a leader's too rigid, you might as well stick creativity in a straitjacket. It's a delicate dance, isn't it? Leaders need to inspire and not just require, or else risk killing those little creative sparks before they can turn into full-blown flames. Thoughts?
Dictator-ish leaders? Yeah, like when they micromanage, it's the kiss of death for creativity. But let's flip this. Real talk. Companies like Google with their 20% time, where employees can work on side projects, now that was genius. Or take Pixar. They're all about open communication across ranks. No surprise they're hitting home runs in the movie biz. And there's Spotify with their squad model. It's all about small, cross-functional teams keeping things nimble. If you ask me, freedom within a framework, that's the sweet spot for cooking up innovation stew without burning down the kitchen.
That's an interesting point about freedom within a frame. But how do you think these big dogs like Google managed to keep that balance as they scaled up? It's one thing when you're a scrappy startup, quite another when you're a corporate giant with shareholders breathing down your neck.
Scaling up without losing that creative zing is like teaching an elephant to pirouette. Google kept their cool by staying true to their core values, right? They baked innovation into their DNA from the start. With those moonshot projects and a culture that cheers on risk-taking, they made sure new ideas weren't just allowed but expected, even as bigwigs. It's about building a sandbox so large that even when the kids grow up, there's still plenty of room to play and build castles.
Spot on, Simon. A big sandbox is good for giants.
Hang on a sec, though, Joe. Playing devil's advocate here. But not every startup has the luxury of a huge sandbox, and scaling up with that anything-goes culture can backfire. Tightening up the reins might be necessary when you're under the gun to deliver profits. Sometimes having too much freedom leads to wild goose chases that chew through cash without any real product. That's why some startups pivot to a more disciplined approach as they grow, because it's not just about keeping creativity alive, it's also about ensuring there's still a business tomorrow.
No argument there. A business isn't a playground. But let's not mistake discipline for drudgery. It's about finding that edge where creativity serves the business goals. Discipline should be like guardrails, not a cage. Sure, pivot when needed, get disciplined, but if you choke out the very thing that makes you innovative, especially in tech and startups, your tomorrow could look pretty bleak. Being too risk-averse can be just as dangerous as being recklessly creative. It's a tightrope walk, Simon.
For the latecomers, Welcome to the creativity circus. We've been juggling some fun ideas about keeping startups fresh and funky. Basically, it's a wild ride between having a free-for-all brainstorming bonanza and getting the boss to crack the whip just enough to keep things moving. Think of startups like gumbo. You need the right mix of spicy ideas, but gotta simmer 'em down to get that flavor just right. It's all about balance, baby. Keep it playful, but with purpose, or else you're just throwing confetti in a windstorm.
Exactly, Simon. Let's simmer down on this gumbo talk. You're making me hungry. But it's true. Running a startup is about merging that playfulness with purpose, keeping the team engaged and ideas flowing, but also moving towards tangible goals. It's like being a band conductor, making sure every wild note contributes to the harmony rather than just noise. And remember, folks, if you don't use creativity as your engine, you're just cruising without gas. Keep that tank full and watch how far your startup will go.
Ha, this takes me back. I remember my first gig at a small startup with big dreams. We were this scrappy team working out of a cramped office that smelled like pizza and desperation. There was this one time we decided to throw an idea party. Everyone tossed in their wildest concepts, no matter how bizarre. It felt like we were in a rock band, each riffing on different instruments, creating this symphony of chaos. Then comes Dave, our version of a conductor, who somehow tunes into this creative cacophony and pulls out this brilliant melody, a concept that would become our flagship product. He didn't stifle the noise, he orchestrated it. Sure, it was messy, but man, did we strike a chord that resonated.
I love the nostalgia, but I've got to push back a bit there. Idea parties sound fun until you're drowning in a sea of concepts with no lifeboat. It's all well and good to reminisce about the glory days when Dave could sift through the madness. But let's face it, not every startup has a Dave, and even fewer have the luxury to rifle through chaos like they're on a treasure hunt. Today's market is ruthless. It rewards precision. You need that synthesis of freedom and structure right off the bat. Otherwise, you're just serenading an audience that's walking out the door. The real rock stars now, they're the ones fine-tuning their operations from day one, creating chart toppers, not just noise.
You know what, Joe? You really hit the nail on the head there. It's a bit heart-wrenching for me because those idea parties were everything back in the day. But times have changed. You can't just jam your way to the top anymore. The market's cutthroat now, and precision is king. I guess it's a bit like growing up. You look back at your wild youth with this fond nostalgia, but deep down, you know you've got to be an adult to survive today. Those startup dreams need a solid strategy if they're going to make it off the ground and into the big leagues.
Ah, the good old days. However, Simon, let's not get too sentimental. Being grown up doesn't automatically equate to success either. Some of that youthful spirit needs to stay alive. It's the pulse of innovation. Cultivating creativity isn't just about reminiscing or strategy. It's an engine, as essential as any business model. Look at the giants who lost their edge when they grew up too much, becoming too stiff, too corporate. The key is to maintain that startup DNA. Keep questioning, keep disrupting, because once you lose that, you're another dinosaur waiting for the meteor strike. The unseen engine of progress? It's not nostalgia. It's that relentless drive to innovate, irrespective of market cutthroat airy. Keep some of the dreamer in you, man.
Hey, Joe, weren't we just riffing on innovation in startups? It's funny because that's got me thinking about these local legends. You know, those businesses around the block with those wild business models no one saw coming? The ones that shun normal and leapfrog over our expectations into some new realm of bizarre success. Like, have you ever wondered what makes those off-the-wall operations just click with people?
Absolutely, Simon. It's the uniqueness that hooks people. It's about offering something you can't get just anywhere else. That oddball character of a local business becomes an experience, not just a transaction. But let's not sugarcoat it. Getting quirky ain't a sure bet. Swing too far into weird territory, and you might just alienate your base. The trick is balancing the weird so it captivates rather than repels. There's no perfect formula, but nail that sweet spot and you've got gold. Like that cat cafe trend, combine coffee with furry friends, and boom, you're Instagram gold.
Right? That's the kind of gold you won't find at the end of a rainbow, but maybe at the bottom of a coffee cup in a cat cafe. Those purring furballs lounging around while folks sip lattes. Sounds nuts, but it's the weirdness that makes it a hit. It shakes up the ordinary. Your morning brew becomes an adventure. And how about the bookstore bar? Sipping whiskey between the Wild and Hemingway? Pure genius. But here's the kicker. Go full-on Mad Hatter, and you risk turning off the casual Joe looking for just a quiet read or a pet-free latte. The balance? Be memorable, but keep it inviting. The reward, though, if you strike that quirk right note, loyal customers who aren't just buying, they're joining your slightly madcap tribe.
Memorable and inviting wins the race, Simon. It's brilliance in balance.
Okay, so while we're cruising down this road of balancing the quirky and the welcoming, let's not forget, these off-the-wall local legends can also crash and burn pretty spectacularly. Take that laundromat/discotheque idea. Wash your socks to a funky beat? Sounds epic in theory, but bopping around with a basket full of undies isn't everyone's jam. The formula for weird, if there even is one, has got to be more like a pinch of salt rather than the whole shaker. It's this tightrope walk where one slip into too strange sends you tumbling. Remember, Joe, not every town's ready for their laundry to get lit.
Spot on caution there, but I'm going to challenge that. Even a laundromat disco, as outlandish as it seems, could be a hit in the right place and time. It's about context. A college town might eat that up. Students love novelty plus convenience. See, the risk of too strange can pay off big if you tap into the zeitgeist. It's like surfing. Catch the perfect wave with your peculiar idea at the perfect moment, and you ride high, miss that timing, and yeah, wipe out city. Remember, today's weird could be tomorrow's trendsetter. Where would we be if nobody dared to tread on strange shores? Sometimes it's not just about the pinch of salt. It's about throwing in the whole spice rack and seeing who comes to the feast.
Right you are, Joe. The when and where factor is clutch for these local mavericks. I'll give you that. And hey, thriving on the edge of eccentricity isn't just throwing stuff blindly at the wall to see what sticks. It's more like planting an exotic tree in fertile ground. A wacky idea needs the right environment to blossom. Consider the rotating kitchen restaurant, the meals cooking while you're looking, or that repair shop that fixes both your car and serves killer tacos. You gotta admit, it's not just about the food or the service. It's this whole experience you can't get anywhere else. Lean into the peculiar, make it a part of the community fabric, and boom, legend status. Weird becomes the new benchmark. A bold move? Sure, but with substantial rewards.
Reminds me of a taco truck in my college town, Simon. Now these guys had a secret weapon, a vintage arcade machine beside their ordering window. You'd munch on mind-blowing fish tacos while trying to set the high score on Pac-Man. It wasn't just their killer salsa that kept us talking. It was the nostalgia meets nom-nom magic. They created a space where grabbing a bite was synonymous with reliving your childhood. It started out as a quirky gimmick, but turned into the heartbeat of our campus community. People didn't just swing by, they stuck around for the vibes, not just the food. That's crafting an experience, my friend. A playbook page, right from the legend makers themselves.
You know, Joe, that arcade taco truck is hitting me with a wave of jealousy. I mean, gaming and tacos are two of my favorite things. But let's pump the brakes for a second here. This kind of quirky setup tends to work on a college campus. I mean, you're steeped in nostalgia and cheap enough to risk your last few bucks on a taco gamble. But try plonking that same arcade truck combo into a serious business district, and the suit and tie crowd might just scoff at the joystick covered in hot sauce. Sure, nostalgia is a powerful seasoning, but sometimes the meat and potatoes need to stand alone. Not everyone wants their lunch break turned into game time. Eccentric works when it tugs the right heartstrings. Otherwise, it can get about as much love as a wet firework.
Hold on, though. Don't underestimate the power of play in even the most starched collar districts. That buttoned-up executive might just be craving a Pac-Man run with his panini. It's not about the appropriateness for the setting. It's about providing an unexpected escape. I'll push back on your pushback, Simon. Sure, not every wild idea is for every place, but sometimes Breaking up the monotony of the 9 to 5 grind with something outlandish can be precisely the secret sauce. These eccentric spots offer a slice of joy, a break from the predictability of daily business, and that's valid no matter where you are. The world can do with more surprise taco trucks and joystick joyrides. Let's not box in the quirk just to college towns. Suits need fun too.
Hey there, new listeners. You've just jumped into the heart of a juicy chat where Joe and I pick apart those one-of-a-kind local businesses that stick out like a unicorn at a horse party. We're talking about those spots with business plans so quirky, they make a flamingo in a flock of pigeons look dull. We've chewed over everything from cat cafes serving up your caffeine fix alongside a catnap buddy to laundromat discos cleaning up the dance floor, the places sprinkling unique flavors into our everyday life. They might not be everybody's cup of tea or taco, but these are the legends that turn ordinary into extraordinary and leave communities hungry for more than just the norm. So if you're chasing that blend of nostalgia and noms or service with a side of silly, you've got to tip your hat to these bold bizwizzes who dare to spice it up.
My take is simple, Simon. Humor can be a deal maker. Picture this: Joe's jumping gym, trampolines in every inch of the office. Got those bottom line blues? Bounce your way to bright ideas. Investors chuckle, but they're thinking, hey, happier employees might just mean better profits. It's unique. It sticks with them. If you make an investor laugh, you've grabbed their attention. That's half the battle won right there. Funny stays in the memory bank way longer than plain stats and figures ever could. Now, gotta wonder, would a joke have sealed the deal for Twitter or Tesla? Maybe not, but it sure keeps things lively in that elevator.
All right, Joe, hold your horses there. Joe's jumping gym. Catchy, sure, but we're not selling a sitcom here. I get it. Humor can slice through the tension of pitching, kind of like using a rubber chicken to cut a steak. But when you're asking folks for a boatload of cash, you want them to take you and your trampoline empire seriously. Sure, make them laugh, but remember, it's about making that cash register sing, not just the investors. If the joke lands flat, you might just be bouncing solo in that office. Plus, if they remember the punchline but forget the numbers, isn't that like forgetting your date's name but remembering their favorite joke? You might leave an impression, but not one that writes checks. Listeners, brace yourselves. What say you? Is having your investor in stitches a surefire way to keep those dollars rolling in, or just a comedy routine that ends when the elevator dings? Send us your thoughts and your wildest, wittiest pitches. And hey, who knows, Simon's sock sorter service might just be the next big, giggle-inducing game changer.
You've got a point about striking a serious chord, Simon. Here's my counter. Humor is the social glue in awkward, tension-filled scenarios like pitches. If done right, it can highlight confidence and creativity, two things investors love. Because let's face it, ideas are everywhere, but an entrepreneur who can roll with the punches, that's a rarer gem. Think about it. Humor shows you're human, adaptable, someone they'd actually want to work with. A great joke can be proof that you're not just sharp, but resilient too, essential for steering a business through stormy waters. So while it's key that your numbers add up, making them genuinely enjoy their time with you could be what tips the scales. It isn't foolproof by any means, but neither is the stiff, all-serious pitch. Bottom line, laughter might just be the unexpected currency in the bank of investor relations.
This whole garage genius vibe hits close to home. My uncle, let's call him Uncle Gadget, was a tinkerer, the kind with more tools than a hardware store and ideas brighter than Vegas. Back in the day, he turned his garage into a cavern of creations, each corner littered with half-built dreams. Once, his pet project was this kooky food processor that could sort ingredients by color. Not exactly earth-shattering, but we're talking about a Technicolor salad at the press of a button. He dove into this thing soul first, part artist, part mad scientist. Now, Uncle Gadget's gizmo didn't set the culinary world afire, and it never made him rich, but it did spark something. Kept our family dinners animated for years, and there's the rub. Some garage geniuses make it big, others inspire the next wave of wild thinkers. His story, a testament to the quirky roots of innovation, shows how the seemingly bizarre ideas quietly paint the backdrop of tomorrow's masterpieces. We might not remember all their names, but they're the oil in the tech giants' engines.
It's those underestimated Uncle Gadgets, carving out innovation in cramped spaces, who twist the very fabric of our tech-driven culture. Their workshops, a lab for legacies not captured by a Forbes headline. Just think how many times you've used something today that could be traced back to an inventor who didn't share the same limelight as your Jobs or Gates. These unsung heroes laid groundwork without seeking glory. It's easy to overlook them, but their drive is what powers progress. Their tales, woven with personal sacrifice and flashes of brilliance, deserve our respect. Because remember, behind every sleek device we swipe through lies a dusty blueprint crafted in some anonymous garage. Those quiet workshops, they're sacred halls of possibility where today's obscure tinkerer is shaping tomorrow's reality. They may not be household names, yet their fingerprints are on the century. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Infinite Podcast. Today, we're diving into what really gets the gears turning in startups: creativity. Now, creativity in startups isn't just about having a funky office or brainstorm sessions. It's about fostering an environment where new and revolutionary ideas can flourish. It's like lighting a match that sets off a wildfire of innovation. All right, Simon, you've seen this firsthand. What's your take?
Creativity in startups. It's like feeding a gremlin after midnight. Expect chaos. But it's the magic kind, where one wild idea can totally flip the script. Real talk, when you've got a team that's not afraid to toss around crazy thoughts, that's when you hit gold. Like, who decided to put chips inside cookies and made cookie dough ice cream? That startup vibe is exactly what gets us that next level munchies, man.
I hear you, but let's get real. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. That chaos can easily turn into a mess if it isn't directed right. Like, sure, chips and cookies, genius move, but for every ice cream innovation, there's a bunch of ideas that should have stayed on the drawing board. I think it's key to balance that creative free-for-all with some serious strategy, or else you're just tossing pasta at the wall and seeing what sticks. What's your strategy for filtering out the genius from the just plain nuts?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. It's like sifting through a sandbox looking for the gold nuggets. You gotta have a plan. My strategy? Think of it like a game of whack-a-mole. I let all the ideas pop up, no matter how out there they seem, but then smack down anything that doesn't pass the vibe check. Does it solve a problem? Will people pay for it? Is it doable without needing to invent a time machine? If it ticks these boxes, we might just be on to the next sliced bread, or internet.
True, you need a solid filter. Look at Google's 20% time policy. It encourages employees to spend a fifth of their work week on side projects. That led to Gmail and AdSense, huge wins right there. Or take 3M with Post-it notes, a classic byproduct of creative leeway. The facts are out there. Companies that weave structured innovation into their DNA often lead the pack. It's about creating a culture where employees can experiment, yet still have a roadmap to turn the what-ifs into viable products. Now, for startups specifically, incorporating rapid prototyping, embracing failure as part of the learning curve, and maintaining open communication channels are real-deal tactics for nurturing creativity that can translate to success. Simon, how would you tailor this in a super young company without much structure?
Well, you've got to have the wiggle room for wild ideas, but keep a tight leash so things don't go off the deep end. In a baby startup, it's all about keeping it simple, like kindergarten simple. Everyone's got playtime, but we're still learning our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of business. Set up a no bad ideas brainstorm session, then pick the ones that make us go, hey, that might actually work, followed by quick testing. No need to build Rome in a day. Use what you've got and make small tweaks. Bottom line, keep it chill, fail fast, learn faster, and always order pizza for those late-night eureka moments.
Playtime's great, but let's not turn the office into a playground. The magic happens when you strike the right balance between creativity and focus. Sure, brainstorm all you want, order pizza, make it fun, but at some point you need to put on the grown-up pants and validate those ideas against the real world. Testing is crucial, but so is discipline. Pivot fast if you must, but remember, startups are in the business of building sustainable enterprises, not just chalking up cool tries. Plus, no investor is going to fund your feel-good vibe unless it translates into returns. So, do we coddle every quirky idea, or do we get selective and chase down only the ones with legs?
So play nice, but play smart.
Exactly. You got to figure out which ideas will fly. It's like a game of darts. You want that fun pub vibe, but if you're not hitting the target, what's the point? In the startup world, the dartboard's your market. Miss that bullseye too often, and you're just chucking metal at a wall. Gotta have fun, sure, but the end game? Hitting those numbers and creating something that resonates with people. That perfect throw, it's when creativity meets purpose and execution. Aim right, and the next thing you know, you've got something more than an idea. You've got impact.
Hold up, Joe. Hitting numbers, true that. But what if playing it too close to the vest kills off the next big thing? Sometimes you've got to let an idea run wild before it learns to walk, man. There's a reason startups disrupt while big core often miss the boat. Creative chaos can be the secret sauce that sets you apart. You go for safe plays, sure, you'll survive, but risk a little madness and you might just change the game completely. It isn't always about the bullseye. It's also about creating a whole new dartboard.
Hey, fresh listeners just tuning in to Infinite Podcast, you've plunged right into the thick of it. We're dissecting how startups use creativity as their secret sauce. It's a fine mix of clever ideas and sharp business sense. Think throwing darts in a pub. We've been hashing out whether startups should play it safe or let some wild throws redefine the game. Simon says go big and embrace the chaos, while I'm arguing for a smart balance. Strategically taking risks without going overboard. Stick with us to dive deeper into how startups are rewriting rules and drawing up their very own dartboards.
So, Joe, bouncing off that dart analogy, do you think there's a risk in playing it too safe for startups? Like, could being too cautious snuff out the spark before it even gets a chance to light up?
Funny you should ask. I remember this one time I took a road trip, nothing planned, just the open road ahead. All I had was a map and an old car that I wasn't even sure would make it. Now, if I'd taken my usual well-maintained car, sure, I'd be comfortable, less risky but predictable. Instead, this rickety ride forced me to improvise, take back roads, meet new people, and have random adventures. Ended up discovering places and ideas I never would have otherwise. It's kind of like startups. Playing it too safe with your tried and true processes might get you somewhere, but taking a chance on an unexpected route can lead to discoveries you'd miss in the comfort zone. It's really about finding those uncharted territories, isn't it?
Absolutely, Joe. Taking the old car and rolling with the punches, it shakes things up. In a startup, comfort equals complacency. You need that regular jolt of new to keep the energy high. By nurturing a team that's ready to dive into the unknown, you get groundbreaking ideas. It's those harebrained schemes, those let's just try it moments, they can morph into real game changers. Granted, not every oddball idea is gold. Many will flop, but you only need one winner to redefine your path. Keep pushing boundaries, I say. Play it safe, and you might as well be selling socks. And no offense to sock sellers, but we're here to start fires, not sort laundry.
I'm all for not ending up in the sock aisle, Simon. Socks are essential, sure, but where's the spark? Let's spin this. Stick with me here. Imagine if every startup played it wild from the get-go. Absolute bedlam. You'd have a whole lot more noise and less substance. Endless revolutionary gadgets that solve problems that don't exist. Don't get me wrong, I love the oddball ideas, but there needs to be a method to the madness. Vision is one thing, execution is another. To really push boundaries, you need creative tension, a yin and yang between wild ideation and focused application. Isn't that the combustible mix that fuels genuine innovation without just setting the house on fire? Push those limits, no doubt. But remember, even firefighters study the flames before charging in.
A controlled burn, huh?
Not quite, Simon. Controlled burns eliminate undergrowth, sure, but too much control and you risk stifling growth altogether. Sticking with that fire metaphor, what we really need is to let the natural biodiversity of crazy ideas thrive. Fires actually rejuvenate ecosystems by triggering seeds to grow that otherwise wouldn't. In the startup ecosystem, it's those wild, unchecked ideas that can break new ground, creating totally new markets and opportunities. Over-regulating this process, you risk missing out on pioneering new territories entirely. The right kind of creative chaos could be just what's needed to spark genuine progress.
Guess it's a balancing act, Joe, between letting the wildfires blaze to rejuvenate the startup landscape and having enough control so you don't get burned. After all, isn't it that untamed creativity alongside careful planning that pushes us into new terrains, discovering unseen paths of progress? How else do we keep that engine of innovation running full throttle?
You know, speaking of untamed creativity and striking that balance, it reminds me of some local businesses that have taken what we'd call quirky approaches to success. They strike this odd chord with their market, almost like they bend the usual business rules but still come out on top. It gets you thinking, just how much of their eccentricity is calculated, and can you actually gauge the right amount of weird to make a venture soar? There's a story about a bookstore where you buy mystery books completely wrapped in paper. No titles, no author names, nothing. Just your literary fate left to chance. That gamble paid off big time, tapping into people's love for surprises. Let's crack open this topic. Local legends, eccentric business models that made it big.
Oh, dive into the weird and wonderful. Take this other bookstore, for example. They only sell one book, but every week it's a different one. Sounds nuts, right? But it creates this hype each week, an event around reading. And there's this restaurant halfway across the world stuck in the 80s. On the walls, floppy disks as coasters. It's so off the wall that people flood in just for the nostalgia kick. These places are like those carnival sideshows you can't help rubbernecking at. You just get sucked in. Then there's the cafe, where customers pay by time, not coffee cups. Literally, you check in, grab your Java, then chill, work, or play board games. When you're done, you just pay for the time spent, not the sips taken. They've built communities this way because folks aren't pressured to gulp and go. These businesses nail uniqueness. They're oddities in a sea of normal, thriving because they dare to be distinct. Eccentricity is their hook. They weave stories that we just want to be part of.
Wild stuff. Ever visit one yourself?
Nah, can't say I have, Joe. But are these niche biz models really sustainable? All right, they stand out and get a good laugh. But once the novelty fades, what then? Is it just a flash in the pan? Think about it. How many times will you buy a book without knowing the title? Novelty business rely on that initial buzz, sure. But long-term, I reckon they might struggle to keep customers coming back unless they evolve. These legends are like fireworks, brilliant at first, but they need more than quirk to keep the lights on. Substance matters. Without a strong foundational business model, our local legends could just be shooting stars. Bright today, gone tomorrow.
Simon, that's just it. The fine line between a flying comet and a lasting star. Sure, novelty draws a crowd, but there's got to be substance beneath the flash. Take your one book a week store. If they curate truly captivating reads, they're not just a fad. They've become tastemakers, trusted for their choices. Move over algorithms. Here's human touch in curation. And retro cafes? It's cool to bask in nostalgia, but unless those games are still fun and the food is good, the novelty wears off. If they pivot right, keep the menu and entertainment fresh within their theme, they grow roots. It's this adaptability that separates a mere flash from a burning torch, evolving while keeping the core spark alive. They're like those old magic shops. Every visit feels both familiar and full of new wonders. Eccentricity reels you in, the journey makes you stay.
All right, Joe, I get the vision, but let's poke that bear. Every town loves its quirky spot, holds it up like a badge of honor, but if every corner had a novelty shop, would we care as much? Market oversaturation. Look at frozen yogurt places. They popped up like mushrooms after rain, and half of them tanked. It's all fun and games until the market catches on, and suddenly you're just another face in a crowd of gimmicks. And what about expansion? If your entire identity is being that weird little shop down the alley, can you even go big without losing what made you special? Like trying to bottle lightning. It's cool in theory, but once it's out there, it loses its zap. There's this delicate dance between growing your business and keeping that strange allure that first drew people in. Sure, evolve, but too far and you're just another sparkler in the 4th of July sky. Pretty but forgettable.
Could quirky go big without fizzling out?
Funny story, reminds me of my Uncle Mick's venture. He started with this tiny hot sauce shop, shelves lined with fiery concoctions, some so hot they required waivers. This place was a hole-in-the-wall legend in our town, known for burning taste buds and daring challenges. Mick had ambition, though, wanted to spread that fire nationwide. So he keeps the shop but starts bottling the sauces for stores everywhere. People were jazzed at first, Uncle Mick's Scorchers, on shelves from here to Timbuktu. But something got lost when it went big, the community vibe, the personal touch of Mick daring you to try his latest lava-level batch. Sales dipped after the initial excitement wore off. Turns out people loved not just the heat, but the heat of the moment, the experience of Mick's Madhouse. So he scaled back, focused on that local love, and sure enough, his shop regained its sizzle. It became clear you can't just replicate the allure of eccentric without losing a bit of its soul. The story of Mick's Molten Empire taught me that going big sometimes means sticking to what made you great to begin with.
So, Uncle Mick found success by staying small.
Alrighty, folks, just tuning in, here's the scoop. We're chewing over how some local businesses cook up success with a side of strange. It's all about those places that nail the weird factor. You know, bookstores selling blind choices, or cafes that plunge you back to the 80s. We're pondering if these offbeat joints can turn their wacky into big-time wins without losing their quirky sauce. Like my Uncle Mick's hot sauce shop, epicenter of spice that tried to go large scale, but realized being small and zesty was its real flame. It's all about striking that balance, keeping it weird and true while making that cash register sing. Can these oddball legends expand without turning into just another face in the crowd? Stick around as we keep poking at this curious corner of entrepreneurship.
So, in this crazy salad of quirky business models, from Uncle Mick's hot sauce saga to retro cafes and single book bookstores, the big question looms. How do they keep their flame without burning out or selling out? These local legends, with their mix of madness and method, can they keep cooking up success on a larger stage, or is their secret sauce best served locally? What do you think keeps them from becoming just another flash in the pan? There's a whole stew of thoughts, so let's keep stirring the pot, shall we?
Joe, Mick's hot sauce saga really lights up the importance of that secret ingredient. But let's switch gears and sprinkle a little humor into the mix. Speaking of unique strategies for making a mark, imagine tickling the funny bone in the pressure cooker moment of an elevator pitch. Picture this. You've got a fantastic idea for a business. Let's say an umbrella rental service for forgetful people called Rainy Day Friends. How about we add a sprinkle of humor to make that pitch unforgettable? Because let's face it, getting someone to invest isn't just about the cold hard facts. Sometimes a good laugh can be the magic that seals the deal. Let's poke around with the concept of elevator pitch comedy, winning investors over with humor. Ever heard any wild stories where a joke cracked open the wallet of a stone-faced investor? And what about our listeners? You guys ever charm someone over with wit? Hit us up with your best zingers turned dollar bringers.
Quick grins score big wins?
Huh, quick grins for the wins, eh? Look, Joe, humor's a sharp tool, but pull it out at the wrong time, and it's more facepalm than high five. I reckon investors want to see you're serious about their money. A pitch with a punchline could hit as not taking this seriously, or just mask a thin idea. Imagine pitching a self-cleaning t-shirt. It's fashion that freshens itself. Now, crack jokes and it might seem like you're all gimmick, no substance. We've seen earnest ideas tank for less. Truth is, if your business is solid, does it need a stand-up routine? Winning over an investor is about trust, bottom-line growth, clear vision. Make them chuckle, sure, but if they laugh their way to someone else's pitch, what have you won? Investors aren't looking for a Netflix special. They want the next big thing, not a one-liner.
You're spot on about trust and vision, Simon, but humor can be a useful garnish. It makes the dish memorable. A smile can ease nerves and make your idea stick in a sea of stats and suits. But let's not confuse a dash of comedy with a full-blown circus act. It's about balance, serving up a solid business plan with a side of lightheartedness to show you're confident and approachable. Here's the kicker. If your idea is golden and you lay down a hilarious pitch that eases into the serious hows and whys, well, you might just have the room eating out of your hand. You're not a jester. You're a clever presenter, humanizing the numbers game. It's about making them remember you for all the right reasons. A stellar idea made more memorable with a laugh. Now, listeners, what's your take? Can wit really woo wallets? Send us your thoughts.
Okay, maybe I'm being too hard on the chuckles. Let's flip it for a sec. You probably recall that old adage, people do business with those they know, like, and trust, right? So I guess humor can be that unexpected secret handshake, a way to fast-track the like and trust. Because here's the thing, numbers can numb the brain, but laughter lights it up. If you manage to serve up your financial forecasts with a side of funny, you might just crack through the investor's armor. So imagine this, they've listened to 10 pitches that day. all graphs and growth projections. Then someone comes in, makes them actually feel something with a smart quip. Bang! That's memorable. It shows confidence, relatability, and, if it's the right kind of humor, it can amplify your message rather than distract from it. Yeah, Joe, there's merit when mirth meets the marketplace. But tread carefully. Not every boardroom's begging for a belly laugh.
True, Simon. A well-timed joke can indeed crack the serious veneer of any stiff pitch meeting. But as we both know, timing and tact are everything. Now we're curious, what do our listeners think? Can a good belly laugh secure the bag, or does all that chuckling just lead to puzzling? Does humor really have a VIP pass in the boardroom, or is it sitting in the waiting area? We want to hear your wit and wisdom on this, so drop us your thoughts. And hey, make us laugh.
But hey, on the flip side of making others laugh, you've got to look out for numero uno, right? I mean, what's the use of having investors chuckling all the way to the bank if you're burning the midnight oil till you're burnt toast? This brings me to something I've been pondering, Joe. You've got these founders fueling their dreams with 24/7 grinding, hustling like there's no tomorrow. But at what cost? Zen and the art of founder balance. Ever heard that phrase tossed around? It's this tightrope walk between growing your empire and not losing your mind. You got some founders meditating. Others are taking off to secluded retreats trying to hit the refresh button. I'm curious if this whole work-life balance deal is even in the same realm as unicorns and leprechauns when you're in startup land. Can you really keep your inner zen while managing chaos? And then there are those stories, entrepreneurs who nailed it, and others who, well, kind of spiraled. Makes you wonder about the trade-offs, huh? Do we drop the ball on personal well-being for the sake of success, or can we actually do both without fizzling out? Let's dive into that a bit.
Balancing act, realistic or myth?
Balance, huh? It's like a unicorn in high tops. Pure myth. Real talk. Founders are notorious for burning the candle at both ends and then chucking the whole thing into a bonfire of VC cash and 80-hour weeks. Sure, everyone's preaching self-care, but when your inbox is a nightmare and your calendar's a horror flick, who's got time for a bubble bath or chanting Om? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for not turning into a work zombie, but here's the plot twist. Burnout's part of the founder's package deal. You hear about titans who stick to routines sharper than a sushi chef's knife, but for every guru-glorified routine, there's a tale of stress-fueled nosedives. So is it realistic? Maybe, if you're a wizard or have an army of minions. For the rest of us, mere mortals, it's more art than science, squaring that Zen circle while your startup's on a roller coaster without brakes. Balance isn't a destination, it's like juggling fire. Sometimes you keep it up, sometimes, well, you smell like smoke.
Yeah, where's that line between hustle and overdrive?
Big question, Joe. Hustle culture's got us all believing if you're not redlining, you're not really trying. But here's the hot take. When does pedal to the metal become a one-way ticket to Crash Town? Running on espresso shots and 2 hours of sleep isn't a badge of honor. It's your brain cells waving white flags. Founders need to find that sweet spot where drive doesn't turn into derail. Listen up, guys. Imagine being so fried even your coffee needs a coffee. Great empires aren't built on burnt-out brains. If you're too busy hashtagging rise and grind to remember what grass feels like under your feet, might be time to pump those brakes. Constant overdrive? It's going through life with a flat tire, thinking you're setting a speed record. That line? It's thinner than the latest iPhone and just as easy to cross. Balance is key. Even tightrope walkers carry a pole, right? So let's sort this out. How do these startup heroes keep from crossing into the burnout zone? Or is a little meltdown just part of the secret founder sauce?
Crossing the burnout line, are we?
Crossing it? Some founders are doing the cha-cha on that line, Joe. But it doesn't have to be that way, you know? There's got to be a middle ground where you're pushing limits without pushing yourself into an early grave. It's not about coasting. Nobody climbed Everest by accident. It's just steering clear of turning your grind into a nosedive. Successful entrepreneurs look at balancing life and work as part of the strategy, not a roadblock. Hey, you ever notice how those who thrive have hobbies or routines that keep them level-headed? It's no coincidence. The trick is to build recharge time into that jam-packed schedule. Drop the always-on act, get some Z's, hit the gym, remember what your family looks like. Avoid burnout by keeping one foot in reality while the other chases the entrepreneur's dream marathon. Don't just fuel up on ambition. Sometimes you gotta stop for maintenance. It ain't glamorous, but neither is face planting from exhaustion. Balance. It's all about not tipping over when things start shaking.
Strategy or roadblock, huh?
Absolutely, Joe. Let's unwrap this a bit more. The whole hustle culture idolizes founders like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, who are famed for their superhuman work ethic. Like Musk once said, he used to clock in over 100 hours a week, which is wild. But let's flip the script and look at someone like Ariana Huffington, who after collapsing from exhaustion became like the poster child for redefining success beyond money and power. She's now a big advocate for sleep and well-being as fundamental to productivity and happiness. Then there's Basecamp's founders, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson, pushing a 40-hour work week max, preaching chill-out vibes with their book, It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. They're proof you don't have to live in your office to make it big. Let's face it, chronic stress affects decision-making, creativity, and overall health. No secrets there. Turns out, tending to your Zen garden might actually help grow your business too. So while burnout is viewed by many as an inevitable rite of passage, there are some smart folks out there showing us there's another way, a path perhaps less traveled, but with far better scenery. And maybe, just maybe, it leads to the same summit.
It's intriguing, Simon. There are various roadmap examples for founders. Some sprint while others stroll. Evidently, round-the-clock hustle isn't the only ride to the top. Maybe it's time we redefine what entrepreneurial success looks like. Could be longer, but healthier and more sustainable. So as we ponder whether going full throttle is always the way forward, let's shift gears slightly. There's this whole other maze founders navigate. Crowdfunding. It's not just about having a killer idea anymore, but telling a story that resonates with masses of potential backers. What do you think, folks? What are the real puzzles in the world of New Age backing? Let's dive into the enigma of crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding, the democratization of investment. Real life meets reality TV. Everyone's tuning in, placing their bets on who'll be the next garage-born billionaire. This reminds me, Joe, have you ever noticed how Hollywood portrays these investor circuses? Take The Social Network or the show Silicon Valley, for example. You watch these, and it's drama city. Just founders and venture capitalists living out this high-stakes poker game. You've got every flavor from the high-flying tech bro to the reclusive genius coders. And I'm telling you, as someone knee-deep in this world, some of that stuff is right on the money, like eerily accurate. But then there's parts that make you think a unicorn just galloped by, because that's pure fantasy land. We've seen some kooky funding methods in our time, but pop culture takes it up another notch. Sometimes they nail the pressure, the sweat you can practically smell through the screen. Other times you might find yourself shouting at the TV, "That's not how any of this works." Anyway, what do you say we unpack some of those hits and misses? What has Tinseltown got right, and where have they flown over the cuckoo's nest with this whole venture capital biz?
Hollywood's take on VC, fact or fiction.
Man, Hollywood's version of VC is like mixing a cocktail of fact and fiction, with maybe an extra shot of fiction for that dramatic buzz. You get these scenes where the nerdy hero pitches and boom, checks get thrown around like confetti at a parade. In real life, you're lucky if they don't fall asleep before you click to slide 3. And wouldn't it be sweet if every coder was also a skateboard-riding, quip-spitting genius? Truth be told, half the time, those office spaces on screen, they look more like adult playgrounds with beanbags and beer on tap. But honestly, they do capture some essence, occasionally, a kernel of truth in the popcorn bucket of dramatization. Because yeah, the stakes are huge, and one presentation can make or break years of work. Shows like Silicon Valley really hone in on the ridiculousness that sometimes ensues in tech culture and funding races. It's exaggerated, but not by much. Maybe that's why we chuckle, because there actually could be a horse walking into your office lobby, if your startup's hip enough. So viewers lap it up, because it makes great TV, but any founder knows you gotta sift through lots of dramatics to find the bits of reality sprinkled in there. What about the listeners, though? Do these portrayals seem over the top or just part of the business roller coaster ride?
Right? How close to reality do you all think these shows are?
Oh, about as close as my Aunt Rita's lasagna is to Italian cuisine. Sure, there's noodles and cheese, but why is there a layer of ketchup in there? Silicon Valley makes startup life look like you swing from servers wearing Ethernet cables for fun. Next thing you'll tell me is everyone's got a pet alpaca as an emotional support animal in the office. If that's reality, I'm still waiting on my sitcom cameo, folks.
Pet alpacas aside, I've got to hand it to these shows for adding some pizzazz to venture capital, a world that, let's be real, can taste as bland as unsalted crackers. But here's my beef. They sugarcoat the grind. You see founders in film land $1 million with a handshake and a smirk. No sweat, no tears, just smooth sailing. Back on planet Earth, that's rare. It's like finding a talking dog. Cool if you do, but don't bet your leash on it. I'll throw in another bone. Risk. Ever seen a Hollywood VC sweat about losing their shirt on a bad bet? Rarely. Yet every real investor has a tale of a deal gone south enough to reach the Antarctic. And then there's misfires like over-the-top eccentricity from TV investors, because apparently all rich folks must be quirky. Sure, actual VCs are characters, but combining Elon Musk with Willy Wonka is stretching the fabric so thin you could floss with it. So listeners, next time you're popcorn deep into one of these shows, enjoy the ride. But remember, it's just one part of the carnival. The reality's messier, tougher, and not everyone's wearing designer hoodies. What do you reckon? Are these flashy portrayals helping or hindering the real-world hustle? Let's stir up this pot.
Absolutely. I might have gone off the rails with the alpacas, got carried away there. Hollywood takes the entrepreneurial grind and distills it into a slick, sexy montage. It's not all high fives and launch parties, but these shows sometimes make it look that easy. The truth is, they skim over months of sleepless nights and all those tiny decisions that feel like defusing a bomb with every tick. Venture capital in real life? It's pressure-cooked anxiety, served with a side of constant rejection, not just glitzy Shark Tank moments. Sure, they're entertaining as all get out, but they often miss the grind, the nail-biting, hair-pulling reality of running on fumes while you convince people your idea isn't a money bonfire. These portrayals can inspire some to dive into the tech world, but remember, for every splashy on-screen success, there's a mountain of off-screen trial and error not shown. Always take these Hollywood stories with a grain of salt, or the whole shaker, if we're being honest.
Nail-biting anxiety, huh?
Nail-biting, you bet, Joe.
It's all nail-biting, but you don't see the full Monty in pop culture. Shark Tank might give a sliver of the tension, but it's all theater, cleaned up and packed into neat little segments. The real world's messier. Most founders endure an emotional roller coaster far from Hollywood's glamour. Ever seen a movie where the main character spends 72 hours debugging code? Not a blockbuster hit, right? Or how about pitching to stone-faced angels who'd rather watch paint dry? That's Monday for many startups. We cut these parts out because they're not sexy. But it's like omitting 90% of an iceberg. You only get the shiny tip poking above water, while the colossal chunk of hard graft remains unseen, unappreciated. Understanding the full spectrum is crucial, lest budding entrepreneurs dive in with just dreams spun from silver screen fantasies. It's not all dire, but expect more grit than glitz if you jump into this arena. Think less red carpet, more caffeine-fueled keyboard marathons.
Absolutely, Joe. Pop culture serves up the venture capital world like a sleek James Bond car chase. It's thrilling, but doesn't show you the time spent in the mechanic's shop. The founders we see on screen are often a polished final version. What's not shown is their backstory, the outtakes of failures and faceplants before they hit that sweet cinematic success. Not just instructive for aspirants, the way Hollywood spins these tales sticks with public perception too. Do these narratives fuel unrealistic expectations or supply much-needed aspiration? Maybe next time we chat, we'll pull back the curtain on some other stories where fantasy meets reality in the financial Wild West. Who knows what myths or truths we'd unravel then?
You've hit the nail on the head, Simon. Screenwriters polish those founder tales until they gleam, stripping away the bloopers and blunders. But variety's the real spice of startup life, kinda like the myriad fundraising traditions across the globe. That actually brings us to another fascinating angle: global quirks in funding. Around the world, startups aren't just winning checks in boardrooms, they're pitching in all sorts of cultural settings. Like I heard about these silent monk investors in Asia who only invest if they reach a Zen level of belief in your project. Talk about pressure. In Europe, oh boy, it's not just about numbers. It's finesse, tradition. Picture this. In Spain, some folks pitch their heart out before tapping into that sacred siesta time. Different strokes, worldwide flavors. It really goes to show that startup finance isn't one size fits all. It's tailored by culture. Let's unpack these eccentric strategies a bit. How does where you are shape how you raise the bar and the funds? What have we seen that made us go, wait, what? Let's uncover the wild side of international investment antics.
Whoa, monks as investors, that's wild.
Oh, it's not just wild, it's a whole new level of zen in the investment game. Can you imagine pitching to someone seeking cosmic signs over profit margins? It flips traditional VC on its head. Each corner of the world's got its own flavor when it comes to securing that bag. You've got monks channeling tranquility into business decisions, contrasted by places where high-energy pitches are squeezed in before midday breaks like in Spain. What we're seeing is a tapestry of traditional norms, meshing with modern entrepreneurship. And let us not forget crowdfunding, the digital twist, where anyone anywhere can play investor from their couch, no silent reflection required. This fusion of old-world customs and new-age tech is creating a wild financial landscape. These trends don't just challenge founders to adapt. They invite all of us to rethink what global capital flow looks like. We've got to ask ourselves, are these only quirks, or do they signal deeper shifts in the industry? Ponder that as we get ready to deep dive into more eccentric funding traditions making waves around the planet. Because if there's one thing certain in venture capital, it's that normalcy is out, and novelty, no matter how ancient or avant-garde, is charting the course of tomorrow's businesses.
Silent monks, huh? That's a new one.
Silent monks, yes, it's a curveball in the venture playground. But let's not get too caught up on the silence. Across the globe, traditions are flipping the script. Take Japanese investors. They often value community impact as much as profitability. Or Norway, where there's heavy emphasis on green tech. It's all about cultural context. It's easy to laugh or shrug these off as eccentricities, but here's a thought. What if they're trailblazers? Rethinking investment criteria could diversify not just who gets funding, but what ideas come to life. Honestly, we might dismiss something like silent contemplation now, but tomorrow, when it's unveiled that unicorns from Silicon Valley have been meditating before signing checks, we'll be eating our words. So, my challenge to you listeners, could these global gambles fundamentally change the game as we know it? And should we perhaps scrutinize how traditional Western models dictate normal investing? Let's talk about shaking things up. Because remember, today's oddity could very well be tomorrow's benchmark.
What's next, fortune-telling investors?
Wouldn't surprise me one bit, Simon. With all the global twists we're seeing, fortune-telling financiers might just pull up a chair at the investment table sooner than we think. The world's opening up to ways that go beyond balance sheets and market projections. When you've got algorithms and AI calling shots on Wall Street, tossing in a little mysticism almost seems logical. In a landscape that's ever evolving, it wouldn't hurt to have a crystal ball on standby, especially when tech can seem almost magical itself. The point is, these global gambles, as outlandish as they might sound, are part of an expanding universe where tradition, technology, and perhaps a touch of the mystical coexist. It challenges our biases about what business acumen looks like around the world. Eccentric or not, tomorrow's brightest ideas might need more than cold numbers. They may need a story, soul, or even stars aligning. As the ecosystem diversifies, the Mavericks could very much lead the charge. How does that resonate with your entrepreneurial spirit, listeners? Are you ready to roll with the changes?
Stars aligning? Now we're talking.
Stars aligning might be metaphorical today, but who's to say it won't be part of a venture capitalist's toolkit tomorrow? But let's not drift into the clouds just yet. Considering these global gambles we touched on, it begs you to wonder, are we missing out by not casting the net wider? Traditional VCs often chase algorithms and analytics, but there's room at the table for intuition and cultural wisdom too. Here's where I put on the brakes, though. I love innovation, no doubt. But the skeptic in me says there's got to be balance. Relying on unconventional methods has its charm, but at the end of the day, the backbone of investment is sustainability and growth. So while yes, aligning with the stars could give us a fresh perspective, let's keep one foot on solid ground. Investors worldwide infusing their character into norms definitely shakes things up, which can be as rewarding as it is risky. Where do you stand, listeners? Is there a hidden gem in embracing these eclectic practices, or should we stick to the script that's written thus far? Can tradition harmonize with modern hustle to create something truly groundbreaking? Let's dig deeper and find out.
Hey listeners, we're winding down now, but I gotta say, you all make this cosmic podcast ride worth every minute. Thanks for tuning in to today's whirlwind of a chat where tradition meets the startup hustle. Remember, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, we're back with more zany topics and maybe some out-there funding strategies. Who knows? Until then, keep those ideas brewing and that feedback coming. Catch you on the flip side.